Next, I want to give you a sense of the overall workflow process so you can sort of understand exactly how all of this is going to unfold. Now, in terms of the applications that we're going to use, we're definitely going to be using Photoshop. A lot of our work is going to be done inside Photoshop, but we're also going to be using a coding application as well. That's going to handle our PHP and our CSS and a little bit of HTML as well. And there's a few other applications that we're going to use along the way as well. But let me give you this bird's eye view of our overall workflow process. We're going to start things off by developing what's referred to as a wireframe, or think of this as sort of the skeletal structure for our layout. So what we want to do at this stage of the game is just generally lay out the main content areas, the main boxes, if you will, for our upcoming layout, our upcoming design. We want to get a general structure. Okay? Think of this as almost like your raw architecture, if you will, for your layout. Once the raw architecture is in place, then what we'll do is we'll move on to the next stage, the next step in the overall workflow process, which is to apply design to the wireframe. So you could almost think of this as applying design on top of the skeletal structure, if you will. And when I say design, specifically what I'm referring to is things like colors and fonts, and eventually things like photography and textures and things like this, right? So once we have our design in place, and all of this work, by the way, is going to take place inside Photoshop. Once all of this work is complete and it's been approved by our client or by our manager or whomever, then the next step in the overall workflow process is to take what we've built inside Photoshop and essentially translate it or move it over into the world of code. And as you can see here, we're going to be working with a bunch of different files. We're going to have an external style sheet. There's going to be some PHP files, lots of great stuff, okay? And then eventually, what we will wind up with is our completed website inside our browser. And the completed website will look as close as possible to what you and I had designed way back inside Photoshop. Of course, there's going to be some minor changes, and there'll also be some opportunity for adding in some extras as well. Okay, so there you go. Once again, this is the bird's eye view, the view of our workflow process from about 30,000 feet. So we're going to start off with a skeletal structure. We're going to apply design, fonts, colors, textures, photography to that skeletal structure. We're going to move that design into the world of code and then wind up with a completed website. That's what we're after here. I hope that sounds good. Now, why don't we go and take a look at our completed site?